everybody. Thank you so much for coming. How's everybody doing today? Good? Good. All right. Yeah. So, this is our last Firewallside Chat. So, in case you're a newcomer, this semester, the ECS Center for Cybersecurity, they have started a series of talks called Firewallside Chats. The point of a Firewallside Chat is to bring in outstanding and talented security experts, such as the trio there from Bechtel, to share their experience and expertise in the area of cybersecurity. So this event is the last event of the semester, and we have a few things to announce. So one of our students has been very active in helping us run the center. First of all, she's basically one of the reasons why we're even able to put this event together. She was very helpful in other events. She is a co-author of the book. She has engaged in fundraising efforts that have brought us so much. So, as a way of thanking her, we have a special gift for her. And the person is Maria Villa. She is our camera woman. So, Maria.
Oh, thank you.
So, this gift is on behalf of the center for you, and on behalf of the Offensive Security Society student group.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Should I go to you? Should I go to her?
Come to me.
Either way.
Go to the front. Go to the front. Go to the front.
Yeah, there you go. Get recognized. Yeah. Get some recognition. There you go.
There's a camera going on.
Yeah. Yeah, get in the camera. Yeah. All right, so, and I'll do the official, Maria.
Oh, great.
You want to tell them the story?
The story?
Related to the decision?
Oh, yes. So, considering how dedicated Maria is, she would spend many all-nighters, especially in the last few weeks, in helping us finish her book chapter related to biometric security. And her laptop kept crashing, which at times was getting a bit frustrating. So I thought of proactively fixing that problem. And that's the way in which we, in a way that I managed to do that. At least I hope. Okay?
Thank you.
So, all right, come on, Maria. So, and before we get started, we would like to welcome another partner on board. We have here Security First Corporation, and I would like to give the next 5 minutes for them to give an introductory speech. So, you guys can come up, and the stage is yours.
Yeah. I have a 5 minute, a couple pages I can
Okay,
throw in
yeah.
there.
Yep, go ahead.
I can do straight edge.
Isn't it Mac? Oh, you're not the Mac. Okay, that makes it much easier. I just need to drag it 2 notes.
Yeah, just 1 second.
There we go. Perfect.
John, you want to just take it?
There we
You want me to do it?
You can do the intro.
So we saw the Fireside Chat in the Orange County paper here a while ago, and given our proximity to the university here, first of all, how many students, how many people from the university are here? And then how many people from private industry? Okay, Bechtel folks? So we saw the article in the paper, we made a call to the university, probably one of the most responsive universities I think that we've had an opportunity to connect with. So we wanted to get up here and participate in one of these fireside chats. We've got a few slides here that'll tell you a little bit about our company. We're not a bank, okay? We're right down the road in Rancho Santa Margarita. We were founded around 2002. Our founder's name and CEO is Mark O'Hare. He's a former Naval Academy guy. And he's got some innovative technology that we're going to spend a few minutes talking to you about. This technology is backed by, there's about upwards of, it's actually more than the slide says, 300 patents that are really security-first technology. Here's a quick timeline. Again, I said we started in 2002, and given the heritage of our company, there's a strong Naval Academy influence here. This business started in deep science around cryptography and cryptographic splitting. In the middle years, in the middle 2000s, a lot of time was spent giving this technology to our government and our country, and developing partnerships with some big companies out there. So the latest transition for Security First here is now from deep science to technology, and we're turning that technology into software with people like IBM and Unisys Stealth here. So we started working with IBM and Unisys Stealth in the mid 2000s. If you go out to IBM's website, you'll see that their ICDS solution is really security first technology, securing the cloud. Same thing for Unisys Stealth. And in the last 18 months, we've just launched 2 of our products. We believe this is ubiquitous technology that everybody should have. Actually, globally, we'll talk more about that later into the marketplace, but we've just launched our Shark and our Gateway product to the middle market space. By the way, we didn't do a proper intro here. My name is Dale Philippi. I'm the strategy officer for Security First. So we've done a lot of work with Gartner to kind of understand this technology and where it fits globally. And my role is really to help focus us in terms of our go-to-market strategy. John Karzak is our VP of Marketing. He's been with the company for half a dozen years. Yeah. Half a dozen years. Actually, some recent research we've done with Gartner, given our size, we've got great brand presence in the marketplace. So John does everything on the marketing side for Security First. We'll talk more about some of the things on this timeline as we go through the pitch. So, you guys, this is a university environment where hopefully there's a lot of big thinking going on. How do we change the world? How do we make the world a safer place? There's a ton of security technology and solutions out there. We've kind of got it bucketed in this circle here. You've got perimeter and firewall technology. You've got network access controls. You've got endpoint protection, user behavior analytics, people that are monitoring network traffic, people that are segmenting networks. The average company today, I think the average enterprise has got some 80 different security solutions in it. The metaphor for that really is people are building bigger castles to protect their enterprises' environments, right? A higher wall, a thicker wall, a deeper moat, a longer drawbridge. As soon as you add 2 feet to the wall, the bad guys build a ladder that's 2 feet taller. So there's a ton of effort, work going on to, on the outside of this circle. But still, breaches every year continue to go up. If you look at the breach data, we spend a lot of time looking at breach data in our company, people continue to get breached. You can read it in the paper. Every day, somebody else gets breached in the Wall Street Journal. We just finished tax season, and there was exponential pirating of tax returns this year through the IRS. So everything that's happening around here is making the world a little bit better. Our approach and what's really innovative about Security First and what's totally different, everybody else takes kind of an outside-in approach to security. We're innovative in that we take an inside-out approach. So the castle is being built to protect the information assets. So what's unique about Security First is we started with the information assets. We start with the data. Our SPX technology starts from the inside out. So even if you got through all the perimeter protection that's out there and you got to the data, it would be rendered useless. If you're a healthcare company or if you're highly regulated, when you got through all that protection to the jewels that were in the, in the safe in the castle, in effect, there wouldn't be anything there. Nothing for the bad guys to use. I'll turn the rest of the presentation over to Jim.
Yeah, so I think where we're different, as Dale said, we start with the data, and that's what makes us unique, is that we, at a very high level, we encrypt the data, then we split it at the bit level, and then we randomize it, and then we can geographically disperse the data. So the data is never all together in one place. The data cannot, if it's one location is hacked, it can be rebuilt, and this whole process, and that's what our patents are around, is this SPX technology. So it gives us all aspects of security, which is confidentiality, high availability, survivability. And we can do any data. It's at rest, in motion, in attached networks, the cloud, hybrid cloud, public, private, whatnot. And our unique value props, we're actually, this technology is we're the only company out there, is that we are FIPS 142 certified through the government. So we've been through the rigorous testing, but our entire engine is been certified. And this is all software-defined technology, so it's very easy to implement. It's not a large investment for capital, buying bolt-on key stores and things like that. And it meets all these compliance requirements, so it solves a lot of problems for organizations. Where we're going with this is we are building end-to-end solutions either through partnerships or through ourselves for the whole ecosystem. As the Internet of Things is exploding, you'll see that we're going to be in point of sale, in mobile devices. There's some big announcements there. We're doing it out in the cloud with IBM. We're securing their big cloud. We're going to go into Watson Health for them. So we're taking this technology and building products and service in the whole ecosystem. Our approach, just real quick, is data-centric technology is that we embed what we say, is we embed the security into the DNA of the data. So it renders it useless. So if there's a breach occurs, nothing you can do with it. The data is useless. And we do it at the bit level, and it's groundbreaking data security technology. And John Scully last year was on Fox Morning News, and he went and he highlighted us and mentioned that this is the way of the future. This is the truly way to secure data. And then we were recognized by Gartner last year as a cool vendor when we released our product. So, and with that, it's 5 minutes. You can learn more about our website, and we're real excited to be part of the organization and have a great discussion about it. And Dale, myself, and Heva from marketing will be here. We'll talk later or see your future events. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really fascinating because we got quite a few folks here from my cryptography class. So I saw a lot of things there like AES, data dispersion encryption. So guys, just be ready. You'll probably be stalked by them afterwards. Yeah. So, all right. And also another thing which Dale mentioned is people keep on getting breached, right? So our Bechtel folks right here, they'll talk about what people do when they get breached. Okay, and I'll let them take the stage. I guess Laura, you're the first one up. So I'd like to welcome Laura Chu. She is kind of special because she's our alumna, and she's now working for Bechtel as an incident response analyst. Once again, she was quite helpful in giving back. She has helped train the Offensive Security Society student group, which is a security-interested student club, to compete in a forensics competition in Cal Poly Pomona. So, and she will share her expertise right now. I don't want to take more time away from her. Take it away.
Alright, so I'm going to be talking about IRMA, which stands for Incident Response Malware Analysis. My name is Laura. As Dr. Goffman mentioned, I graduated from here in 2014. I took a few months off after graduation and then started working, so I've been with the company for just over a year and a half. So I'll go over a little bit on who the company is and what we do, and then into the IRMA stuff. I'll go over how it's used, what you can do with it, how you can utilize it in your environment, and really what it can give to you. So who is Bechtel? It's probably the largest company you've never heard of. That's the best way I can describe. I didn't know anything about the company beforehand. But we have a lot of people in a lot of places, all the continents, practically every country. And it's been around for quite some time. The four main business units are listed there. As you can see, we're not building houses or doing little projects. It's multi-billion-dollar projects in very big and very high demand areas. With that, it means that there's lots of cool projects. You've probably heard of Hoover Dam and BART. BART is the train system in Northern California. But we also have ones called PCAP and BGAP. The CAP part of those acronyms stand for Chemical Agent Destruction Pilot Plant. So what they're doing is destroying chemical agents that have been stockpiled and we're no longer allowed to have, so we have to destroy them. There's a picture of PCAP, which is in Pueblo, Colorado. And then we have Ivanpah, which I think is really cool. It's a solar power plant where each one of these is about a garage door sized mirror that will reflect light into the tower that's in the middle and do some stuff and create some power. So then you're probably wondering why I'm telling you about all the cool stuff we do and why I'm bragging about all of it. So the question, why does it matter? It matters because it makes us a really big target. We have stuff in a whole bunch of areas across the world. It's a global thing. And so we have a lot of information. Aside from just the number of people and the personal information from that, we have information about current projects that are being built, plans for that, stuff that's already been built. But then we also have information about stuff that hasn't been built yet, which is bid information about projects we want to do. So with that said, when we have a potential breach or something that might be a problem, you have to investigate it and decide if it actually is a problem. And one of the things you'll come across is files, whether it's an executable or a PDF or a Word document. There might be something that you're not sure if it's really clean or maybe it's malicious and trying to do something. So you gotta ask yourself, what do I do to figure out if it's bad or not? So the answer to that is doing malware triage. This is something that IRMA can help with. So malware triage is just kind of getting some basic information to decide whether or not you need to go deeper into it and do more analysis on it. So with IRMA, you can do antivirus scanners. They'll scan it through a whole bunch of different ones. You can also do static analysis. That is information about the file. It could be file size or file type. If it's a PDF, it can give you what's called objects that make up the file. And we can do all sorts of things. You can also do behavioral analysis. I put that in quotes. Usually that's running the file and then seeing how it affects systems, what changes it might do. But I do put that in quotes because IRMA doesn't actually perform that. You can submit it to a service that will do that for you, and then you have to go and check what the results are back. This is similar to VirusTotal. VirusTotal is a website where you can either query a hash or you can submit a file. I think they have something like 40 antivirus scanners installed there, and it'll give you an output whether it flags them as bad or if it has a signature for it. So you might be asking, well, if we have VirusTotal, why don't we use that? There's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is operational security. If a file was specifically made for our company and the file hasn't been on VirusTotal, then we don't know what antivirus has flagged it before because it's just not there. So if we submit it, then that can tip our hat to the attackers that they know that we're working on it and we've already found this file, and they might change their plan. So we don't want to do that. It also allows us control over antivirus. We can pick which scanners we want versus virus total. You just have to do all of them. There's no option for that. Virus total is strictly antivirus, whereas IRMA can allow us to do some of the more static analysis stuff. And then also it just allows us to fit it to our needs about what we need at the time. So to continue with the overview, the project is actually open source from some French researchers called Quarks Lab, and their GitHub URL is there. It's Python based. You can use Linux and Windows scanners, whichever you prefer. And then it returns values known as clean, compromised, or error. Error would be if something broke and it didn't actually scan it. And then for compromised, you can have it show what the signature is or some information about what it was flagged as. So here's the architecture. There's a lot of lines and a lot of boxes, and it looks really complicated. So I'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll come back to this picture. It's made up of 3 parts. There's the front end, the brain, and the probe. And these are all just virtual machines, so they're pretty easy to spin up, and if it breaks or something, you can spin up a new one. So the front end, which has to be Linux, is what provides you a user interface for the website, where you can submit files to it. You can do a single one, or you can do a batch of a bunch of files. So then that will send it to the brain. The brain is where it puts it in the file in a queue. And then the probe, which can be Windows or Linux depending on which kind of scanner you have, is where it picks up the file from the queue and performs the task that it's assigned to. When it's done, it'll return the results back up to the brain, and then that goes back up to the front end, and it shows you what the results are. On the back end, some of the libraries are listed there. This is a slightly older version than what they have released now. So it might be a little different than their current version. I just want to let you guys know that. So then going back to this picture, here we have the front end. So then the user puts the file in, and then this is the brain. So then it puts the file down into the queue, and the other ones are just sort of storage and database information. So it puts it in the queue. And then we have 3 different probes. These can all have different scanners, or you can have one probe that has a couple of scanners on it. It just depends how you want to set that up. But the scanners will broadcast the probe will broadcast what scanners they have available, so that the front end will know what its options are for scanning. So then once this is done, it sends the results back to the brain goes back to the front end, and then the user gets to see it. Here's what it actually looks like. You can put your files in, and then down here would be the different scanner types you have. A little blurry. Doesn't really focus. But those are the different scanner types. You can unclick them or uncheck them if you don't want it to run that scanner. Otherwise, it'll just leave them all selected as default, and then you can run it that way. And then as it's running, this is actually the newest version. I grabbed these screen caps from their website. So this is the newest version, and it'll give you some progress as they're being uploaded, as they're scanned. It'll update with what the results are. So then when it's done scanning, then you get the results page. And the top will give you some information about the file, it's the file size and the hash, and then when it was uploaded there. And then the results of the antivirus scanners. So in this one, all of them except one shows that it has some sort of signature for this file as being malicious. start to understand the basic input-output structure of the code. They do have what's called a skeleton plugin. It's just sort of the very basic. There's not really anything here, so add what you need to it. So that's what I've shown here. At the bottom there, this is all just information about it, what the name of the plugin is, what the version is, who wrote it. There's also the dependencies. You can give it an OS dependency, so if you only want it to run on Windows, you can tell it that. So even if the source code were on a Linux machine, it wouldn't broadcast that. You can run that scanner because it would fail that dependency. You can also use that for config files, or if there's a binary on the machine that you need, you can give it whatever, you can tell it what it needs in order to run. So that's the first part of the code. And then the second part, there's two main spots to be aware of in here. The first part at the top there is the init. So this is where you would put, grab the files out of your config file. This could be URLs if you need to query a website, or it could be an API key or some kind of token, or proxy information, just whatever you may need later. That would be in that config file. And then at the bottom here, it says main analysis call here. This would be the function call to where you would be performing the scan or query, or really where the main bulk of the stuff would be done. And then you would call it there, but then you would define it above in a new thing. And then after that call is where you would interpret the output. You can parse what the results are from the scanner, and then decide whether it was good or bad, if there was a problem or whatnot. So then here's an actual example. This is for using the VirusTotal API. So at the top there, that's where they load the config. It grabs a API key, and then decides whether it's going to use the private API or the public one, and that's depending on the type of key you have and the type of account that you have. So it sets all that information. And then at the bottom is called Get File Report. That's where it calculates the MD5. They probably could have named that function a little different, because at the bottom it returns a call to Get File Report. That's actually a call to the VirusTotal API and not a call to the function that we're already in, which can get a little confusing if you're not sure what you're looking at. So then it calls the information and returns it. So then where it calls it is at the top where the first arrow is. So now that's going to get back whatever the results are from the query to the API. And then that large chunk at the bottom, that's where it's actually parsing it and deciding, first of all, did it work, or was there an error? Did it give me a 200 response? That means it worked. But if it worked, is it considered bad or not? Was it flagged by any of the other scanners? So that's where you do a bulk of I have the results, now what do I do them? How do I present them back to the user? So adding plugins is pretty much limited to whatever you can do in Python. This could be Linux commands. You can do pretty much anything, since Python allows you to use a process. So you could call anything that you could run on the command line. This might be helpful if you want a file type, see what it is, because the extension might not match what it is, or maybe you don't know what the extension is. You can use it on installed AVs. Most of them come, even though you have a GUI for it, they usually come with a command line scanner that the GUI calls when it scans a file. So you just directly call that command line scanner. So it would be installed. You can also do API calls or query a website. You can submit it to sandboxes. And then, as mentioned before, you can do static analysis. That could be for executables. You might want information about the sections, or for PDFs, you might want to see if there's JavaScript in it, or same with Office documents. You might want to see if there's any macros. So pretty much anything you can put in here. So now I move on to integration and automation. Now that we have it, we want to be able to do things quickly, but we want to be efficient and we want to be careful as well. So automation helps us do things a little faster. Some places for this, it does have an API, so you can use that. That can allow you to scan maybe email attachments that come through on your network or just network traffic in general. If you have another tool, you can have it automatically submit to IRMA. There's a couple different places for that. And then also for documentation. I'll be talking a little more about this later, but just to preserve the results so you have it somewhere that's not just accessible by the website. So automation is a big thing. I'll talk a little bit about scripture, which was written by a coworker of ours, Moses, and there's a public portion of it available at that GitHub site. What we did was we needed to modify IRMA a little bit, not really modify it, but use it to its full extent for what we needed it for. So one of the problems was bulk querying. Their old version didn't have any search feature. Their new one does. I think it's a little limited though. But if we submitted 50 files at once and now I want to see what the results are, I don't want to have to go one link at a time to see them, because that would be a huge time suck. So what we did was for scripture, which is just a website where you can put tools, utilities, and things like that on it. What we did was have it connect directly to the database that IRMA is using and query that, so we can quickly get results better than any other way. And then also just searching in general, talk a little bit about that more, and then history, see what the last ones are, because unfortunately, the way that they do the link for the results is you need a scan ID, which is just a unique number that it gives you, and the hash. But if you run the scan and then it's done and you actually close the window, well now you don't have the scan ID anymore. So how do you find it without having to resubmit it? So this history solves that problem. And then also send to ticket, that's about the documentation. So for whatever ticketing system or wherever your documentation goes or is, we wanted a way to preserve the results and put them in the documentation where all the analysis is happening without having to click the link. Or what happens if IRMA's database gets messed up and now we don't have the data anymore. We just want a backup plan for how to get that information or keep it. So here we have the search. You can search by 2 different hash types or file name. And then it's a little blurry, but it gives you the results, our file name, so anything submitted with that hash, associated with that hash, will give you the different file names. So you may not know that file name A and file name B are actually the same file until you see this. And then it gives you what time and date they were submitted, and then a scan ID, which is the unique number for the scan. And these are actually linked, so you can click them and then go right to the IRMA page with the results on it. And then here we have the history, gives you a table output. Similarly, you have a link here of the scan ID, the scan ID at the end. And then this is the shop. There's a main page, just kind of an overview of the results, but then you can also click on it and get more detailed about what each scanner was. So the scan ID link gives you the main page, and then clicking here gives you the details about the scanners. And then we have the date, the file name, and then how many times the file was submitted.
Why the file name censored? I'm just curious.
Some of them had names in them.
Oh, I
So
see.
I was doing a better safe than sorry approach on that.
I see.
I think this, I can't read the date. But yeah, this was an old screen cap that I had used for a different presentation. And then for this, even since you can submit to a bulk submit and do more than one at a time. If you put in, let's say 5, and you wanna see the last 5, it may actually give you more, because it's possible that the last scan had 10 files, so now your list is gonna be like 14 long or so. Huh. That's fascinating, the box isn't where it's supposed to be.
Good job.
Too late. Probably.
So which information there is secret?
Well, I was covering up the hosting, but that didn't happen.
Okay, yes, everybody's taking notes, so yeah.
This is gonna go down in performance
Yeah.
review this year.
We can edit it out of the video.
OPSEC fail.
Yeah.
It's kind of blurry, you can't read it anyway.
You saying I'm old?
There we go.
There we go.
So then this was the send to get the documentation that we wanted. If you have some way to update your documentation ticketing system, you can have an email in there, or maybe it kind of depends on what you have. But this is the sample output, it gives you the information about the file and then also the URL. And then we broke it up into sections. So the top section would be, these are the things that say this is bad. Gives you the scanner and then what the output is. That could be the signature, so you can quickly look and see what it all was. Prior to this, they were just copying and pasting the output from the web, and it had horrible formatting and stuff didn't match up and it was not pretty. So this is much more organized, it makes more sense. So the compromised part's at the top, and then at the bottom is what reports it as clean or safe. And then below that, if there was anything that errored out or broke during the scan, it would be down there. And I think that's all I had. I talked really fast. If there's any questions.
I got one. Yeah, in the beginning you mentioned a website where you can go and you can scan a file with hundreds of different antivirus tools. Is that website open to the public? And let's say, one of the people here, they get a suspicious looking file. Would that be a good option to go there and get it scanned by hundreds of antiviruses, see if any of them actually flags it?
Yes, it is open to the public, right? Anybody can make it. I think you have to make an account though.
Nope.
No? You don't have an
Just
account?
upload it.
Okay.
Just
Oh,
submit.
Yeah, you
yeah.
can just go and upload it. Can I tell them about our account?
Yeah.
So,
Might as well.
so we have the fancy account that actually lets us download any file that's been submitted to VirusTotal. So if you update your tax return or something, if you think it's bad, then just be aware that anybody with the fancy account can go and download it.
And we do go in there and do research, so like, for example, we'll go look for, I don't know, Excel spreadsheets that happen to have interesting fields in them, like SSN or password or things like that, and then you can download anything that anyone in the world uploads to this website, because they've agreed to just upload this stuff there. And now any security researcher that has one of these VirusTotal intelligence accounts can go in and look through the data. So, might want to be careful what you submit up there. Make sure you know what it is before you actually put it up there, because there could be somebody else getting access to it afterwards.
I have a question. So this is not real time. This is, you are running your IRMA system on data that has already passed through the system?
In most cases.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what criteria do you use then for, you can't run everything through it. So you've got to have some sort of,
The eventual goal is to run everything through.
okay, but do you have any kind of filter or some sort of criteria that you use for deciding which files, which emails, which sites it will be?
It's an analytical tool right now. So based on alerts and different types of activity that we're seeing come through, an analyst will, as a part of their process of triaging the data, will toss it in there.
Okay, so there's some
Sorry, I'm
post,
thinking-
I know.
My bad.
yeah.
Later.
So you're doing pre-screening?
Yeah, so that's the triage part, is we have a
Yeah.
file and now what do we do with it? So
Yeah, but I
regardless-
mean, somebody has already analyzed the
Already,
file.
yeah.
There's some reason that they're picking
There-
this
yeah,
file. 'cause
it's already come
had
to
a
them.
million a day, yeah.
It's already come to them with some, we think this might be, we're
Okay.
not sure what this
Yeah,
is.
Yeah, And that tool, can you talk just briefly about that tool? You said that's an analytical tool that you guys wrote, or?
It's written by Quarks Lab. It's actually open source. It's an open source project.
Oh,
So
yes,
here,
okay, yeah.
they have two options actually. You can install it yourself from source code, or you just download their like pre-built VMs and maybe change some host names of where your brain is. And there's a little config to do once you
Yeah.
download it.
So do you run everything through Quarks Lab, or do you still have some analysis prior to running it through Quarks Lab?
Well, the actual system is all internal to us,
Uh-huh.
so we just kind of borrowed it. So they don't get any of the information, but
So you've already done, I assume then that you've already done some sort of analysis, or somebody scanned the logs, or as you said, there's you have a security analysis that's kind of monitoring the web, the internet activity, and they say, oh, what's this over here, what's that over there?
yeah. So
And
the,
then you select those out and run those through Quarks Lab?
yeah, so the files come in from somewhere and we have it, and then we would have to manually put it into our website
Okay.
to scan, and then if that says we don't see anything bad with this, then they'll continue their analysis from there. If it says, if all of them say this is really bad, then that'll kind of have a different path.
Okay,
So it's not an end all what this tool says.
Mhm.
It's kind of a stepping stone.
no, I understand, I get that idea, so that's kind of a pre-screening.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a question in the back?
Thanks. It's a follow-on question to Dr. Kaufman. How do you guys feel about Open Threat Exchange and OPSEC, OTX? So a lot of SCIM tools, will participate in OTX.
Am I allowed to answer this?
Yes.
All right, so open threat exchanges are great. It just depends on where you're sourcing your information from and who you're sharing it with. So, for example, we have defense contracts, and so we participate in the DIB program. Any information we receive from DIB, DC3, DICE, FBI through those channels, we can't share out with our intelligence partners. So we also share data back and forth with, say, Google, Facebook, folks like that up in the Bay Area. We can't take those DoD indicators and share it laterally over into business, right? But someone like Lockheed Martin or GE or somebody like that can share that stuff with us and vice versa back. So we have a platform to do that within that controlled group. Now there's open source indicators, right? And there's groups that are, I guess, if you look at like a Threat Connect type service, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they have the community exchange of things, and that's just a bunch of people putting in a bunch of intelligence about all the bad things out there, APT or not, right? So that's a great tool to use and for analysis and everything. But you can also through their platform, and so with a lot of these other platforms, Crits uses Styx Taxi. I don't know if you want to talk about Crits integration with IRMA and the relationship there.
Sure.
But so that's a collaborative research into threats, and that's a tool that was released by MITRE Corporation, and so that actually has a mechanism for you to be able to say, okay, the source of this is DoD. So in our sharing, as it automatically shares out with everybody else, we have mappings where we say these people can see these things, you can't see these things, right? So it gives us some control over what it is and make sure we're honoring our sharing agreements. There's a lot of NDAs flying around with all this intelligence sharing, not just on the DoD side, even with just some of the threat sharing groups that we're a part of. They're horribly expensive and don't provide us any real value for what we're doing specifically. Great product, but really got to be government type. Yeah. The other thing is just the OPSEC around it, like she kind of touched on. We've got a file that's targeted at us, right? It's a custom piece of malware that's coded and for use to attack just Bechtel. But we don't want to upload that to VirusTotal. So what, in Irma, what we've done is Laura put in a virus total integration to look up the hash values. And I think are you running SSDs as well? Yet? Not yet. We're getting there. But basically look up the, the hash values to see, is this something well leveled? We know it's malicious. We're getting all kinds of hits. We know the vector it came in. We have other intelligence that gives us an indication that it is bad stuff, right? But we're not seeing it in BT. Nobody else has been hit with it. We're pinging our sharing partners, and they're like, yeah, we don't have this hash. So when we have a scenario like that, that's a very unique situation. We know, okay, this is probably targeted versus it just being a broad spectrum commodity thing. So if it was a broad spectrum commodity thing, we would expect to find, multiple hits and virus total for it. So a zoo spot type thing, we would expect to find a ton of those types for it.
Thank you very much, Chris.
I have kind of a follow-up question. Oh, if that's all right.
Oh, no, go ahead, yeah.
Okay. So, I understand how your Irma system works and what the intent is, but once a virus gets through, and it's escaped Irma and it's gotten into your system, and it's performed some function, you don't know what kind of analysis do you do then? How do you know? I mean, other than having the system crash, you would have to have something that tipped you off that would say, hey, I've got a virus and it wasn't caught and it's already performed its function. So what kind of analysis do you do at that point?
So you're talking specifically on like our Irma VMs, not like our.
No, not on the
regular,
Burma. It's already gotten into your system and it's either stole files, corrupted files, it's got a rootkit in it or some other thing.
So the interesting thing about Irma is there's an FTP server. So our potentially malicious file actually does get moved over to all the probes.
Okay.
However, they're not run. They're just copied over, and then when the scanners run it, they don't actually run the file at all.
Okay.
Some of them actually, Symantec and Sophos and maybe some of the others, this part I'm not sure how it works, but they are able to scan it and give me the result back, but then the AV catches that, hey, this is bad, I'm going to delete it. So it deletes it on its own. So it kind of cleans up itself. But then for all the other ones, there's a check. If the file hasn't been deleted after the scanner run, then delete it.
Yeah, okay. Well, what about the damage that's been done? How do you find out the extent of the damage that's been done to your system? I mean, I'm sure Irma can't catch that.
We've actually had it for a year and a half.
I think you can use if, let's say, a system somewhere inside of our network gets
He's asking about
Yeah.
Irma specific. Oh, the
Yes.
network now, just
Yeah.
anywhere.
Right, somewhere in your network, yeah.
Oh, that's a whole
it's
bigger
slipped through.
conversation.
Yeah.
So you want to know how we catch it or how we
Right,
react to
well,
it?
assuming that something has slipped through, gotten into your network, and you say, whoa, we've got, had a virus in here, and now we need to figure out what the extent of the damage is.
A lot of analyst time.
Okay.
So we
okay.
have, Ryan, you talked about safe searches, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, I don't want to stop on his presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is something you're gonna talk about.
But we have alerting capabilities, so we may get an alert like, oh, this host is trying to hit this website that we have already blocked, or we've been attacked by them before. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can get alerting that something might be compromised, or it's really a whole bunch of save searches and alerting that way. And then once we get alerted by it, we have a security operations center that runs 24/7. So they'll get it first, and then they'll start triaging and deciding kind of general what's going on. And then if it's way worse, then it may become an incident, in which case everybody helps out to see what's it doing, what hosts have it hit, what has it downloaded, has it gone to other systems, and just that would be figuring out the extent.
Okay, and is that part of your group, or is that part of another group?
Partially our group,
Uh-huh.
we work really close together with this other team,
All right,
so it's a little bit of both of us.
okay.
I have a quick question. So from the sounds of it, it sounded like you guys only do this on things that have already like sprung an alert, right? Like, oh, sorry, that's not, like that's my preface. So do you guys also run this kind of analysis on, let's say, someone reports a phishing email or something?
Yeah.
Okay,
So that would be one of the-
and then you just do it manually based on whatever they submit.
Yeah, so it could be automated alerts that we have, or it could be user reports to us, or, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things.
Gotcha.
And then also, again, trying not to stomp on Ryan's presentation,
Yeah.
but it may be analysts actively looking for something that seems out of the ordinary.
Basically.
All right, let's give Laura a round of applause. So, if you guys have any more questions, I think after the presentation, you'll be available, right? To mingle? Yeah, so our next speaker I'd like to introduce, who has already done a lot of speaking, but now officially, this time officially, we have Chris Pawan. And I guess we can start at the moment. And I think Chris is also going to probably be able to answer a lot of questions regarding incident response.
I'm going to try to avoid those, because I don't know anything about it. All right. So, this is actually this is something that I gave actually to a group of DoD folks about a year and a half ago as a part of that DIB relationship that we talked about. So we call it sock in a box. The premise here being, if you look at like the DoD landscape, there's a lot of big contractors, Lockheed Martin, General Electric, us, big companies who can afford to have a team of 40 analysts on staff and doing a lot of work. Lockheed's got way more than that. But there's a lot of smaller DoD contractors, and not necessarily the primes on the contract, but the secondary on the contract, which might be a company of, say, 8 to 10 people doing a very specific task. Well, their job, their focus, the things that they're doing is still very important, and there are adversaries out there that still want to get to that information, right? If they can get a little success with one small group, get a little success with another group, success with another group, they might be able to piece together enough information that could be damaging to our national security. So how do we fix the problem with them not being able to afford and all these expensive tools? Is anybody here familiar with NetWitness? It's a packet capture analysis tool. Is it cheap? No, no. I mean, even just, I think entry cost on that thing is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000, right? If you're a small company working with small margins on a value contract, right? Lowest bidder type situation, you really don't have the money to go invest for something like that. So what do we do, right? How do we fix this problem? How do we help? Basically it's the whole big brother helping out the little brother type scenario. So what we did was we took something that we were doing internally with Bechtel. So we're very project-based. Laura covered some of those things, and this is kind of unnerving here. You're trying to get an armpit shot? I'm sweating yet? We have a lot of project sites around, and so instead of standing up massive infrastructure every single time, we needed a way to still monitor certain network segments and get data going. So back in 2012, one of the projects I got tasked with was to take all open source solution, commodity hardware, and create a full packet capture and log aggregation system that we could quickly and easily deploy out around the world. Well, guess what? It actually worked. We've been using it for quite some time now. We have one of our sites in Canada which has 4,000 employees, 5,000 employees, that ran off of literally a shuttle box that I built from Fry's with an additional network card in it. Ran all the packet capture, everything off of that for a good almost 2 years before we switched over to enterprise grade hardware. So that was actually a really great experiment for us, because we were able to show you don't need to go spend tons and tons and tons of money to monitor a full gig, and they had a full gig link there. We were monitoring full gig link with, I mean, off-the-shelf hard drives, off-the-shelf, stuff that you can go get at the computer store. So then we said, well, wait a minute, there's this problem over here in the div space. How do we help fix this problem and give them at least some capability to start looking at what's traversing their network, what types of data is coming in and out. And so that's where we came up with this open source SOC in a box. So Laura mentioned Ivanpah. This is Ivanpah again. I like this project. If you're driving from here out to Vegas, you'll see these three towers, the solar collector towers. Basically, these are just this is just black steel. It's basically a huge radiator. The light shines on it, heats up the water, puts it through a steam turbine, spins the turbine. It's the same premise as nuclear energy, except we're just heating the water via the sun. The plant's not doing. We've turned it over to the customer. It's a joint venture with Google and somebody else. We've turned it over to the customer now, and they are having some issues, especially with what they call streamers. These are birds that fly between the collector tower and the mirrors and basically catch on fire and stream of smoke. So there's a big problem with that going on, but you can see our engineers got a little clever down there. They repositioned the mirrors to make our company logo and took a photo of it. So even on our civil engineering side and everything, we've got some good power lines in the company. It's great.
A quick question on this. How much power does this power plant produce? I'm just curious.
I think it's a 30 megawatt plant. I want to say she'll look it up. So I'm the forensics and incident response team lead over at Bechtel, and Laura's on my team, and I'm also teach a forensics program here at Cal State Fullerton under our extension program, and we're actually working on right now expanding to do a Security 1 analyst program in the extended education as well. So with the all the things theme for the day, Laura automated all the things. I want to log all the things. I've been doing forensics for probably about 12 years now, and the more data I can get, the better, because it helps me find different bits and pieces of information to put together to then say, here's what happened, and have a better, more definitive answer for people. But the real goal was low cost, reliable, open source network security monitoring stack that's easy to deploy and easy to use. Seems like a pretty lofty goal, but with some of the advances we've had in open source tools being released and just really great creativity from folks around the globe, it's actually a pretty simple thing to do now. You don't need that $1 million net witness solution that will cost you more than $1 million in reality. So the features, be able to deploy it quickly. We need to be able to capture packets, decode the packets, aggregate logs. So Ryan's going to get into this a bit more, but this is kind of leading into that a bit. Is basically we want to get logs from everything. So if it's a server running some sort of web service, if it's a workstation, all the event logs. We collect every event log from every computer in our network. We collect every log from everything in our network that we can get our hands on. And we find new log sources every day that someone didn't tell us about. We're like, okay, let's get that into our, we use Splunk, we're going to be using a different tool here, but basically get all the things in there, because the more information we have from all these different devices, when we're trying to figure out what kind of badness is happening on our network, or even if we just are having some sort of outage problem, we can assist in that process of helping our IT teams troubleshoot the issue and say, oh, hey, I'll give you an example. We had a problem where all of our storage was starting to cause latency problems, and Exchange was starting to go down. So what we did was we took all the logs from the storage systems, and we took all of our other logs to see what's going on. We had a suspicion that it might be an antivirus scan being kicked off on every single server that was leveraging those storage solutions at the exact same time. We were able to overlay the two sets of logs and actually show, yeah, look, all the virus scans for all these servers on this storage pool was in fact kicking off at the exact same time, causing a race for the resources. which caused everything to slow down. So they went in, they staggered the scans out across everything, and everything returned to normal. So again, it's a good example of getting all those logs into one place, how the value you can get in and figure things out. And then obviously the ability to search that information quickly and easily. So we do that through indexing and then obviously our little search interface. Any questions so far? No? Good. So we talk about, before we get into the actual thing, we have to actually find a way to get the data off the wire, right? We use fail-safe taps, so these are net optics. This little doodad here is, I think it's about $1,200. But basically, we have this optimally would be between our firewall and our router so that we can see the data going in and out to our internal network. If this thing were to lose power, that we wouldn't cause the network to go down. It's still going to transfer the packets along the way. But when we do have power applied to it, it allows us to basically take a server or any kind of system and tap the two different sides, A side going in, B side going out, right? And start doing a packet capture on that. So we get both sides of the conversation coming in and out of the network. But again, so the importance here is, as a security person, we already get blamed for causing things to slow down. We already get blamed for all kinds of things going wrong, right? So when we have an opportunity to put this fail-safe type situation into the mix, it's very optimal. You wanna not have someone calling you up going, "Your stupid packet capture device thing, you just caused our entire network to go down." No, it didn't. Here's why. It's fail-safe. So yeah, but in $3,200 total to do that. So that's pretty cheap. You can use a Linux bridge, which is essentially the same sort of setup. You're still tapping it, but in the kernel, you're actually bridging the two interfaces together and allowing the traffic to pass through. This is a lot cheaper because you're only paying for a server to sit there. But if that server goes down, the power supply crashes on it, you have kernel panic happens, anything along those lines, guess what's going to happen? The whole network is going down. You lose that network until someone either unplugs that cable and shorts it over, or you get that system back up and running. At home, I do this at home. So my home network is just a Linux bridge. There's one little box, it does its thing. If the network goes down, my fiance screams and yells, like, "Why do you have to do that?" Don't worry about it, I'll go fix it. But it's very effective, and as long as you have a good stable system, you can run for a while like that without any real hiccups. Incidentally, you can also do transparent blocking with that as well, because you can use basically the Linux bridge version of IP tables, and you can say anything that's this IP address going to this IP address or whatever, you just drop the packets, and it's transparent because the bridge is just dropping the packets on one side, so it never makes it to the other side. So it's kind of like the way that the Cisco ASAs work, where you can do the transparent blocking on them. So technologies, we're just using Ubuntu, nothing crazy, just download the server version. Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, which is the Elk stack, is another component to this whole thing. And then Bro IDS. Anybody here familiar with Bro IDS? You've heard of it? What does it do?
It's an intrusion detection system, so if there's anything funky going on your network, it will pop up more.
Yeah. This is Bro. It's misleading with the IDS part. You can do some alerting with it. That's not really its strong suit. Its strong suit is actually encoding the packets. So taking a packet stream and showing here's all the connection data, here's all the HTTP stuff that decodes HTTP, SMTP, FTP, a whole bunch of different things. And so you can turn raw packets into logs that can then be searched, and you can do analytics on. And then the last piece is libtrace, which is from WAN Research Group. So if you were to capture packets right now, OSS people, right, were to capture packets right now on your Kali VM or whatever, what would you use? Wireshark, or maybe TCP dump? Yeah, you should look into the libtrace tools. So you can actually aggregate different interfaces together into a single packet capture all in one command line. You can convert to and from things, and you can actually do gig captures with actually we haven't noticed in the PCAP itself, it's usually an interface problem, but PCAP doesn't drop packets as a part of it. You try to do TCP dump at gig, you're going to have some problems. Yep. So libtrace is pretty fantastic. Basically, if you're familiar with Endace, Endace is a big packet capture enterprise class capture tool. They're using libtrace as their underpinning libraries.
Are all those tools open source?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. This is all other than hardware, and maybe if you're, if you can run really fast with a server under your arm, that can be free too. But all this except the hardware is free. So the install is pretty simple. I have my little video there. This is the GitHub page. So we're trying to do some try to publish out these types of things to the rest of the community, and you can download this thing right now. My demo that I'm going to show you here in a minute is basically the latest version of what's up there. But it just literally just run the script. We handle all the dependencies, so we make sure we take care of download all the dependencies in the script. We compile everything the right way. We set it up with the interfaces. We ask you some questions at the end. Which interface do you want to monitor on? So if you set up a system that has 10 interfaces, you can specify which interfaces you want to actually monitor as a part of the process. We'll add it all to the script and everything, and then you will literally, as soon as it finishes, you will be capturing packets. Capturing packets and decoding. So the one thing is that we dump everything to the /logs. So if you have like a RAID array, like a larger array, or just have an external drive or something that you want all this data, the PCAPs and the logs to be stored to, just mount to the /logs. And then the script, when you actually run the script to install it, all the data will get dumped to that /logs directory. Yeah, it does all that stuff, great. So anyway, so the alt stack, the free version, doesn't really have any kind of security on it. You can do IP tables and SSH tunnel and actually secure it that way, so you're having to log in via SSH and it doesn't allow external connections to it, so you have to use it through an SSH tunnel. We just recently, and it's actually working in the current version, so this is a slide from, I forgot to update this, but the newest version actually does have, we proxy the ELK connectivity through Apache. So whatever local user account you're using to log into the system, you would just, when you get prompted with the basic auth via HTTPS, you would just enter in your credentials there. So we do actually have it secured now. So, but if you don't do that, and ELK, the whole ELK stack, they don't by default have any security with it, because that's one of the things that you have to buy from them. So, hey, these guys, they're rolling these open source tools, they're great, but they've got to make money somehow to sustain the project, right? So they have, these support modules that, hey, we can add these things on and make your life easier, but if you just want to hack around with things, here's the free stuff. So it's kind of like the whole Red Hat model. So we have this working for ourselves, and we're still trying to work through the legalities of things, but we're working on adding in Splunk forwarder integration to it, so you can receive logs via Splunk directly to this box. You can use the Logstash tool, but it's got some quirkiness to it, and it's not necessarily the most reliable thing on the planet. We're also working on a little web GUI to allow you to start, stop, and download the packet captures. So similar to the way we have our operations, or the way you would use a net witness, you could just go to a little GUI interface and say, from this time to this time, a conversation from anything from this IP address with a conversation between these 2 points, extract that out of the greater packet capture so that I can open it up in Wireshark and see what's going on. You can go straight into the packet captures right now and on command line sift through them, or just pull the whole thing into Wireshark, and I think we're doing 200 meg segments or something like that. So it's still, 200 meg is still a pretty big capture to pull into Wireshark. You got to have a lot of resources to handle that. And then we're looking at adding Google Rapid Response as just a base built-in sort of thing. So when you install this and you hit go, one of the options will be, do you want to install Google Rapid Response as a part of this as well? If you hit yes, what it'll do is it'll download and install Google Rapid Response tool on there, compile all your agents for Linux, Mac, Windows, and that's key to your specific environment, so that you can go take and install those on all your endpoints, and then leverage this one system that you have, right? Again, this is designed for a small network. We have 50,000 whatever endpoints or whatever. I don't know how many we have. We have a lot. We have a huge Google GER infrastructure. So I think probably 5 workers at any given time that auto scale up, and AWS has needed at least 2 HTTP heads and a couple database backends to handle it. You don't need to do all that, especially if you're just a small network, if you're just a small business, or just doing it at home, or just playing around in your lab. So want to make it easy for people to actually put their hands on these tools and start getting experience with analyzing data and understanding how to do response when something does trigger and happen. And then some custom deployment stuff for people who've asked for it. Yeah, get to the demo. So basically I just have a little VM running here in the background, right? Nothing fancy. It doesn't look like it's doing a whole lot. Just for those of you in the room, anyone not familiar with what a VM is, a virtual machine? Nope. Awesome. So this one is just running on my Mac, and it's monitoring my interface, so there's not going to be a whole lot of data in here, but there's enough in here to kind of give you the point. So you can see here over the last 4 hours, I've captured some data. So right here, there's a little bit of a spike, and what I did was I went ahead and ran just a real basic Nmap scan just to generate some traffic off of my interface so we can see some data and packets coming in. So for example, if we want to see everything that is type bro-con, we can search on that. It gives us some nice highlighting. We can look at these bits and pieces individually, but I could say dest port is 22, right? So now I have everything where there's a destination port of, or, am I? And it's not playing nice with me. Demo fail. So anyway, you can get in, you can start sorting through, sifting through things. If you want to have, build up like quick little tables of things, dest port, host, no, that. So we can see the source IPs and the destination port. So if you look here, it's all my IP address, and I'm hitting a whole bunch of different destination ports. This is indicative of a port scan, right? The one thing I like about Kibana over Splunk is that you can just keep scrolling, and the jQuery in the background will just keep updating it, so you can continue to read through it in a one contiguous log. Splunk paginates things, so you have to go next page, next page, next page, next page. So you can see the port scan going on, and obviously I think there's some things that are open here on the network that I could probably play with if I was interested in it. You can build visualizations for things. It's a little complicated, but and we're working on actually doing like a training video around this that we're going to post a link to on that GitHub page. So if you do look at it and you download it, you go, God, I don't know what's going on here, you can just put in a feature request on that GitHub page to us saying, how do I do whatever, and one of us will go in and actually put together some notes or something on it for you. We've had a few people do that. We posted a few things. But generally speaking, I just went out and built a little dashboard. So you can see here all the DNS requests that are coming through. Bro does DNS decoding. Top talking IP address right here, again, that's mine. We can see a few other little IPs where there's some minimal traffic. And then top talkers by source IP, counting, just basically counting the bytes up, and you can see again, that's my host. So as we roll into Ryan's talk, these types of stats and metrics really are very helpful when you're doing an incident response and having the ability to kind of do some math on the data that's coming in through your network to see where the badness is happening. A good example of that is, and talking about safe searches that Laura mentioned, is we have one, for example, that is large file transfers coming out of our network. So we monitor for large file transfers. So anything over a certain size, we say, we need eyes on that, what's going on there and why. And we'll see stuff, I mean, a lot of times it's legitimate activity, but it's like someone uploading their entire profile to their personal Dropbox account or something like that. And it's like, really? Why is this huge transfer going on? So then we start looking into it and we go tell them, no, don't do that. And then they have to go delete it all off of their Dropbox account and everything. But yeah, it's helpful to have this information because it gives you insight as to what's egressing your network.
How do we sure they actually have deleted all their personal Dropbox account?
Oh, we sit there with them.
Oh.
It's basically, it basically becomes a condition of their employment at that point. You can either let me watch you do this, and you cannot do this ever again, or we can go sit down and talk to HR. So, for violating policy.
Which may create an additional problem because although they may have cooperated and actually deleted something off the Dropbox, Dropbox being a cloud system, they probably have it, replicated across multiple systems. Maybe they keep a copy around like Google does.
How do you transfer files? What's the way? Everybody does it. I know everybody in this room does it.
Drag and drop.
USB.
Oh, USB.
Right? That is a prolific problem for most organizations, is those stupid USB drives. And from a security perspective, not just losing your data, but also ending up getting infected with people bringing stuff in, because we don't control what they do at home. And they're plugged it into their home computer, USB gets infected at home, and then they bring it into our network, and all of a sudden now we're infected.
That's how Stuxnet works.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I was going to mention Iron Key as like a possible, obviously you know that, but
Yeah, when you look at the cost of Iron Key, right? Because everything comes down to cost. So you look at the cost of Iron Key, duplicate that times 50,000.
Yeah,
it's a big dollar figure.
very large.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you guys let people use Dropbox? Is that part of your policy, to allow people to use Dropbox?
We allow the use of cloud storage for business purposes. That is policy. We are working on the technical controls, but as a policy, we have basically, Bechtel's real big on trusting the individuals that they've hired. So the problem I make it sound worse than it is. Realistically, it's not. It's a very small minority of people that are causing all the problems for us. It's a problem nonetheless. But it's culturally we've allowed it to happen. We're trying to shift that culture to be more of a security culture versus a campus culture. So, but we use like Office 365 and Box and stuff like that. And those are no secrets. Like people have released press releases on their websites about that. So I'm not giving anything secret away.
The network traffic you can sniff, but you cannot sniff USB traffic, really.
So we do monitor the endpoints. We do see all file reads, writes, deletes, executes from USBs. We see the serial numbers for everything that gets plugged in. We track it.
Oh yeah, of course. But like what I'm trying to say is, you can transfer how packets flow in and out of your network, but you cannot really monitor how USB drives go in and out of your organization?
So we're working on that with a data loss prevention project that we're working on. So we're going to limit what USB drives can actually be used, and everything will be force encrypted. One of the biggest concerns is, somebody leaves a USB drive on a plane or in a Starbucks or something. Now you've got, an entire project's worth of data sitting there. The wrong person picks it up. And they now have a competitive advantage against us. So none of our government sites aren't allowed to use USB stuff, but it's all of our other project sites. And some of our customers require it. They're like, no, we want you to put it on a USB thumb drive and walk it over to us and hand it to us. And we're like, we'd really not like to do that. We'd like to find a better way. And they're like, nope, this is the way we want to do it. And when you do business in varying countries like Saudi Arabia and Oman and places in South America, you have to take into consideration the cultural aspects of who you're doing business with, and we have to kind of shift our security, how we're doing security, to kind of work with that country, that culture, the way that they want to do business, because we can't just come in as the big bad Americans and dictate, no, you're going to do this. We're the ones paying us, right? They're kind of the ones in charge, so we have to play by their rules. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, with regards to the decisions that you made to go to this tech stack, like, did they come from your own personal experience, or just what you did, like, you did some research and people recommended it? Like, how did you come to that conclusion, making this choice?
So the libtrace aspect of things was what basically Endace was using, so we ended up just shifting that, using that in the open source stack of things. The Kibana, Elk, Elasticsearch piece was really the only thing that was coming that's in play that is slightly close to what Splunk is. So we wanted to have an easy interface for people to use, and that was it's the only thing out there really. There's some other little stuff, but it's not some real hacky things that work off Lucene and whatever, but it's not great. Takes a lot of dev work, so you got to kind of balance how much dev you want to do versus, hey, this is good enough.
Stored process query, yes.
Yeah. So. Yep. Is that it?
So some of the things which you talked about before about network tapping, it seems to me that a lot of those systems, they could be built by anybody who has a free computer and 2 network cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this could become a little whole weekend project for people here,
Yep.
or especially for the OSS members. Yeah.
So you could take the stack in parts and put it on like a Raspberry Pi 3 and turn that Raspberry Pi 3 into like a wireless access point, and have all that traffic going through there, and every bit of traffic that flows through it, you're now capturing and turning into logs that you can then go and search.
Yeah. OSS is trying to do a project like this right now. We won't be using it on school Wi-Fi to do anything bad, so yeah, don't worry. So no worries, yeah.
I can almost guarantee you there's far worse things going on in your network already than what OSS would probably do, because they actually have a conscience. Right? So they're gonna stop just short of going too far, whereas there's probably some other. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm trying to help you out.
He's the collective conscience of OSS here, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's university networks are pretty hostile environments. And from a research perspective for you guys, from a defender, just understanding where the stuff's coming from or whatever, it's a great lab to be a part of. Anything else? Yes, sir.
I have one more quick question. With like super important documents that need to be completely secure for transferring, you talked about like some companies or other locations requiring like maybe USB transfer. Do you guys do anything with like secure file transfer methods like file send or anything like that?
Yeah, so
In
we have
order-
we have data classification levels,
Yeah.
right? Level 1 being our most important stuff, level 4 being public, anybody and their mother can know about it. For the level 1 data, we have some pretty stringent requirements about how that data can be stored and where it can be stored, and then also how it can be transferred. So obviously must be encrypted, can only be transferred to someone else who has a need to know that data. A lot of regulation around that. We have a system that goes in and is based on those rules and just some of the things. Let's say you're a level 1 generator. We will tag every document that you create as level 1 because we know that the primary base of your job is to generate those level 1 type documents. So that has basically a watermark on that file. And the file itself is tagged, but then we have all the metadata around it as well. So if someone were to be able to strip that tag off, but we saw metadata that was matching up, 80% of what that file was, then we would say, whoop, wait a minute, this is probably level 1, we need to stop this transfer or block that person from using it. So it's really just a lot of data management. It's a long process to get to, but we have very, it almost mimics what you would do with classified documents, how we handle level 1 data.
So use something similar to mandatory access control.
So, yes, so you have to, it's 2-factor, you have to have a token to get into that area to access those servers. The data is encrypted at rest, it's encrypted across the board. It's not easy to get to. Not saying you can't get to it, but it's certainly not easy to get to it. Our biggest problem comes in is, we work with a lot of joint ventures and third parties, and we can have all the security in the world, but the moment we have to collaborate with somebody else and we hand that sensitive data over to them as a part of that joint venture bid or something like that, you might as well just throw all the security out the door because we work with a large Turkish firm, and when it's their data, they're like, hey, protect our data. It's our data. It's not quite the same situation that happens sometimes. Same thing with some of our JVs in foreign countries where the culture is very different. In a lot of Arab nations, there's this culture of share, right? So everybody's copying everything and say, oh yeah, I've got a file that's like that. It's like, that's somebody else's intellectual property, guys. We can't use that for this project. That's illegal. Why? We have a copy of it. It's the cultural challenge. We see it with a lot of, actually with our Chinese offices, surprisingly, they've been very low. They've not been problematic for us. It's just the Chinese government who attacks us a lot. But our employees in China have been actually phenomenal. We've had very little incidents dealing with those Chinese employees. I'm trying to think of.
Are we counting sneaky the way that this happened?
That was a flub. She didn't do that on purpose.
I am just saying.
The culture is a very interesting thing we should bring up, Chris, because the Stuxnet attack, those of you who aren't familiar, but the Stuxnet attack was compromised of Iran's nuclear generators, and the plant was not even connected to the network. So the idea there was whoever was the attacker, I mean there are some educated guesses, they infected the computers around the town where the power plant is, thinking that people will bring work from home to the power plant. So you probably wouldn't have an answer to this unless you remember that APT group shit out you were. But do you think when they were thinking of this whole scheme, do you think they took this cultural aspect into account?
Oh yes.
Do you think that those guys, they're very often they like copying things?
If you can exploit the human, you can exploit the system. That's the reality.
Yeah.
Our people still to this day are probably our weakest link. And it's very apparent that these sophisticated state-sponsored attackers know that that's the case because it's all targeted at individuals. All these phishing emails, all these things are targeted at individuals. So they spend a lot of time, and a lot of money, and a lot of effort trying to exploit the human to get into the system.
So maybe cybersecurity is a red herring.
You know, good cybersecurity involves education.
Yeah.
And educating your users in a way that is meaningful to them. Because if you've got an engineer who's got a deadline to refuel a reactor somewhere, and all of a sudden you tell him he's got to take cybersecurity training, and he's focused on how do I get the uranium into the plant and generating heat so that we can produce steam to turn the turbine, yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't really care about your cybersecurity or anything else. I've got more important things to do. So making sure that your education is meaningful and you're not putting people into like a information overload. So we give them tips. Hey, look for these things. We fish them every now and then we tell them, you're a bad person because you clicked on this, right? And then we give them a little training session, but the training session's quick. It's like 10, 15 minutes. And it's just, you know, it's keeping them aware. There's no repercussions if they click on it. And just encourages them to report things. And there's some people who will report everything. I mean, like, this one lady, she actually ordered something from Amazon, got the email confirmation from Amazon that she had just ordered with the name of the thing that she actually ordered, and reported it as phishing to the SOC because she's that paranoid. And so we're like, okay. And so eventually we got on the phone with her. We're like, this all seems very legit. So we're concerned that maybe your Amazon account has been hacked. You might want to call Amazon, your credit card company. She's like, well, no, I did order that. And I'm like, all right, perhaps we should go into what a fake email phishing is.
What exactly did she order that she thought that the confirmation was? Wasn't a fact.
I don't know. It was like paper towels or something.
That sounds fishy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Orders.
Yep. Cool. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
As far as Beholder is concerned, is that shell script or is that Python?
It's a shell script. It's just basically a bash root script.
Okay. And is it so? It's a packet capture tool, but it's based around these open source technologies like libtrace and other things.
Beholder's just the name we gave to it. You know, like just the all-seeing eye. The guy who named it is a conspiracy theorist on our team. He's all into the Illuminati and thinks that and all these things. So we let him name it. So he named it Beholder. He wanted to call it I don't know, all-seeing eyes or something. I forget what he came up with. And then he said, no, Beholder, and he got all excited about it. So fine, name it Beholder. Yeah, it's really just all Beholder is just a script to get you quick started leveraging all these other tools.
Oh,
So
okay. Really like open source.
yeah.
When you say VM, what VMs are you running, like KVM or Docker, or what are you running?
So, I mean, we have a broad spectrum of things, but mostly we're running like VMware, ESX stuff. It's the vast majority of stuff, things in AWS, but full-on OS VMs.
No cluster?
We've done, yeah, so we have a few Hadoop clusters, a few Mongo clusters for different things that we use just because we need performance. So Splunk is all clustered as well. What is it?
Question that's kind of off the topic, but one of the things that seems to be prevalent today is ransomware. It's like the one that just hit Lansing Power. I don't understand why, if a company is doing reasonable backing up, how can that hurt you?
That's a great question. If you have a good disaster recovery, you might lose the period of time from the last time you backed up to the time that you got affected by the ransomware. So you could have a gap of an hour to a day or whatever. But realistically, yeah, I think what we've been seeing
is the assumption that all companies have even a semi-decent backup plan.
right. That's where I was going. Is I think we've seen from the media reports, right, is that people really aren't backing up stuff, because they're sitting there going, what do we do? Do we pay the ransom? Do we start from scratch? How do we handle this? And the first thing that came to my mind was like, bro, just recover from your backups. Well, turns out, no, they're not backing things up.
I can see, you know, hospitals that end up paying, they're kind of dumb, and I expect them to, but a power plant, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, so the problem, there's two problems with that power plant situation is A, they allowed their plant to be connected to the internet. But B, SCADA systems are a very fragile flower, and the problem you run into is that these systems are designed to work one way with no thought of security or anything else on top of it. The security, in reality, is the fact that there is a physical perimeter around it and nothing's supposed to be plugged into it. We run a lot of plants. We are transforming, and Laura talked about our chemical agent destruction plants. We just did the first cybersecurity thing for one of those plants. We're getting ready to do the second one. The first one was, you know, it's no big deal. It's in Pueblo. It's just mustard gas, right? I say just mustard gas, but it's just mustard gas. You know, it's a pretty low kill rate. You know, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's not going to be a big deal. But you know, our other plant has sarin and VX in it, so a little bit of higher stakes are a little bit higher. So we've proven that we can bolt security onto a SCADA system at the lower risk location. Now we're moving on to the higher risk location. If you look at like companies like Edison here in Southern California, PG&E up north, they actually have phenomenal security as a part of how their plants and everything works, and backups and everything. But again, it's a similar problem we have here is you've got a small organization that can't afford or doesn't necessarily have the talent to come in and make those types of things happen in a SCADA environment. It's not going to happen because the engineers are, I mean, really, these systems are working a very specific way. There's not a whole lot of room for any additional things to be introduced into the system because it could cause a communication delay of milliseconds between computer A and controller B over here, which could cause a fan to shut down somewhere or cause whatever, which then causes a whole domino effect in some plant. So they're very sensitive about allowing anything that wasn't a part of the original design of the plant and a part of the original specification to come in. And backups tend to be one of those things that happens. So, but they do have good recovery plans for this computer dies, put a new one in place. So they should have been able to recover from it. It might have just been some poor logistical plan that they had. So, there's always a plan. Whether or not they practice that plan, whether or not they know the plan actually works, is something different, but there's always a plan. Yes. Our national infrastructure is
It's frightening.
it's one bit away from falling over at any given time. I'll tell you a horror story. So RuggedCom had a built-in backdoor to all of their systems, and these are these ruggedized network switching things that are all, I mean, they're heavily used across the globe. So a researcher that was working for PG&E, previously worked for PG&E, discovered the vulnerability, reported it to RuggedCom, reported it to US CERT. US CERT was trying to compel RuggedCom to fix the thing, remove the backdoor, right? Because it's something, if you know the MAC address of the device, you can, through a quick little script, figure out what the backdoor password is, and then you have full system control over this device, and you can sit there and start shutting things off. You could have a net effect of a nuclear strike on a city through just making some little changes on these switches across the network. That's huge. That's a huge impact without actually having to set off a bomb. So, of course, hey, let's report this, let's get it going. I think it was 2 years it went by. Are you familiar with this one?
Not that, but we've done it through showed on like stuff
Right,
like headers that are out, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like turning a battleship, dude.
Yep. I would say it was like a year or 2 years, and finally the researcher was like, look, we can't wait any longer. You guys have ignored me. US CERT keeps trying to make things, and RuggedCom's ignoring it. So he released the vulnerability out, said, here's what it is, here's how you do it. We tested it. We knew about it before because we knew him, and he told us about it, and so we've showed that, yes, this is a problem, and by the way, he's gonna release this tomorrow, so we need to figure out, how we're gonna mitigate all this. And, so it took, you know, him releasing it, and then, you know, PG&E along with a lot of other big energy corporations going to Rogecom saying, yeah, we're all probably going to sue you if you don't fix this. And so they then started working on a fix.
I think one of the issues which you brought up, Chris, is that there is a notion of security perimeter, so everything inside is secure, everything outside is untrusted. I think, you know, one of the reasons why we still have so many breaches is that nowadays we have an erosion of security perimeter. A lot of companies, they use cloud services, they outsource their IT to the cloud. We have mobile devices going in and out, especially with VoIP, bring your own device. So really nowadays this perimeter-based approach is not really as effective anymore. But I think a lot of companies, they still operate their IT security as if this was still the 90s or early 2000s when the perimeter was much more applicable.
Yeah.
So I think that'll have to change.
And I think this goes to, I'm just gonna call you Super Bits Corp, because I forgot your name of your company, but, these guys who spoke, at the opening there, talking about going at the data first, I mean, the reality is that if we're not taking approaches like that, we're not thinking about different ways to address our content and actually protect it, we're not going to, because everything that gets uploaded to the cloud, everything that gets copied to USB and gets moved all over the place, we lose control of our data. I say our, I mean everybody in this room, everybody who's ever put their credit card information somewhere, has filled out a form at a hospital, who has filled out a form at the DMV. We have now put that information out there, and we're entrusting incompetent organizations to be the custodians of our information, and it's not great. It's not great at all. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask, with regards to defending like SCADA type environments, PLCs and that kind of thing. I mean, your next group is also responsible for that as well.
We work with the engineering team. So we have a group that focuses on SCADA security.
Is that, does that basically come down to just defending like the endpoints at that point, or at least the controllers themselves? I'm sorry, when I say the controllers, I mean like the actual
I know what you mean.
like computers that are.
Yeah. So you have the PLCs, and you have a controller firewall, which allows what traffic to pass back and forth. So you have a lot of point-to-point stuff. You know, the firewalls say only these things are supposed to talk to these other things over here. The network is, you know, all fiber optic running between buildings, so there's no EMI interference and things like that. We're doing packet captures in those networks now. Again, the fail-safe one, not this stuff. Because the last thing you want is for one thing to go down and a plant in the middle of a inerting ammunition shuts down, the robot goes. So yeah, we have a lot of things that we're doing without going into too many specifics, because we can't disclose those things. But as you would imagine, it's not just monitor the endpoints, monitor the network. There's a lot of other bits and pieces to the picture that we have set up as a part of that. And you know, there's some companies that have been doing it for a long time in their SCADA networks, but the majority of people aren't yet. So we're trying to build sort of, I guess, a reasonable standard as to how to do these types of things. We're working with Honeywell, who's a big supplier of products to our company. We're working with Siemens, who's a huge supplier of our products. And we're now starting to convince the engineers that they need to go back to those vendors and yell at them for not making good secure communications paths for things. It's 2016. We have the computing power. We should be able to do it. Cool.
All right, thank you, Chris. Yep. We'll take a 5-minute break before we let Ryan finish up. So, go stretch. They have a free walkout there in the lobby. And of course, you can mingle with the Bechtel guys, you can mingle with the Security First folks.
Security first.
Yes, yes, yes. So, all right, and I'll see you in 5 minutes.
7,000 solar radiation.
That's so crazy that birds like just like
Okay, okay.
So,
Yes, amazing.
so I live in Arizona, right? So
Oh, I do.
I'm fascinated with the sun. So, cooking, like people have solar ovens.
Where's the pause button?
Oh, the pause button. I think you just press this. By the time the next spring rolls around, if the administration do things quickly and efficiently. So another thing I wanted to point out is we do have a website. It's www.fullerton.edu/cybersecurity. Is that not Fuller? Yeah, I think so, right? There we go. Yep. So you saw Chris and Laura there again. So check us out. And if you enjoy this event and other events that we have held, if you support our mission, please support us. Okay? Thank you so much. And marketing pitch over, and then I'll let Ryan to take right over. Okay? So.
Yes, a question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You guys have merch?
I'm sorry?
Merchandise? You have like shirts and stuff?
So just yesterday, the strategic communications department, they have made our logo, so now we have a logo. So yes, we're going on a shameless, intensive branding campaign. In fact, Maria is about to post our logo all over the website. We already talked about making T-shirts, ties, and mugs, amongst other things. So yeah, we will have merchandise eventually. It is in the planning. All right. So all right, I'll let Ryan take the stage. Thank you, Ryan.
Cool. Hey gang, how you doing? You awake? All right. So, we're going to talk about basically log aggregation. Anyone here familiar with the concept of log aggregation?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, it's really simple. You aggregate logs. You bring logs together into a singular interface where you can then, well, let's just go away with it. I said heck, what? All right, our agenda for today, no one really cares what we're going to talk about as far as the agenda, so let's just actually talk about it. My name is Ryan Chapman. I work on the CERT at Bechtel. I came formerly from our SOC. I was on the SOC for almost 3 years, for most of which I was a lead. So when I moved over to the CERT, I moved on to the network security monitoring team. So Chris and Laura are both on our DFIR, the Digital Forensics Incident Response team. I'm on a different team, but I also work as an incident handler along with them, primarily because of my background on the SOC. Also, I'm the CERT SOC liaison, and the idea there is I just love to run my mouth, you'll see. I love to talk. And so they're just like, oh, we need to increase communication between the two teams. And they just looked at me and they're like, yeah, you do it. In fact, Chris used to do it, and then I think he got bored doing it. He's like, you do it. So we both held that role. And in fact, speaking of the class that we were looking to put together, one of them being a network forensics course, Mikhail asked me, it was like 3 years ago now, I believe. It was a while.
Yes.
Like that, to put together a workshop, and I ended up doing 12 hours, surprisingly. I didn't realize it was that much. I did 6 two-hour segments, and if you just go to YouTube and literally just type in Cyber Forensics Workshop, you'll find my links there, and you can watch those. And I like retro gaming. I like to do stand-up comedy now as a thing. This beard's kind of cool and fluffy. And I guess the family, I should probably I should like them too. My wife and daughter. Yes.
Hey, good question.
Yeah.
May we post that workshop video on the central website for everybody here to see and enjoy?
Cool. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I look younger. I don't have a beard in there. She's like, but yeah, that'll work. All right. Now, I do want to lead off and talk about our security stack, quote unquote. And this is basically the bevy of tools that we put together to secure our network. Now, Chris talked about basically miniaturizing this and sticking it on non-commercialized hardware, if you will. What I'm going to talk about here is what we officially have set up at Bechtel. This is not the entire picture, but it gives you a good idea of what we have put together. First up, our primary goals in what we do are to deter, detect, respond, and remediate. So these are our primary tasks. So these are color-coded to essentially the items we're going to go over right now. We're going to talk about up on the horizontal here, with the first item loading being a firewall. We're going to talk about our network-based appliances. And then we're also going to talk about some host-based items over here. The host-based things are basically a second level of defense. Like when Chris was talking about USB drives being shared off-site, right? Whenever a user, for example, comes to a conference like this, and you're using a work laptop like I am right now, and you connect to a non-Bechtel network like I am right now, with an amazing password, right? And I doubt they have host isolation on, I'm just saying. When that occurs, if something does infect the machine, well, when it comes back onto our network, the guys and gals we're going to talk about on our vertical over here are host-based applications that will still try to rectify or remediate any problems. Yes?
What color is the
All
response?
right. By the way, I'm colorblind. Apparently, I can't go a day without. Sure, everyone knows that I'm colorblind. All right, I suck with color. Okay, so first up, we have a firewall. Those are pre-existing before we were brought into the picture. In 2012, there was a bit of a thing, and the thing resulted in the CERT being formed and the SOC being formed. So we didn't have proactive monitoring. And then a thing happened, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh, we should have that. So that's what, when we came in, we had firewalls. Now they're just simple, what I call dumb firewalls these days. I mean, you block by egress or ingress, IP address, boring, whatever. So those were already there, sure. Now, when we came in, and kind of what Chris was talking about, we have a fully packet captured environment. Let's just call it fully packet captured, okay? It may not be 100% technically. But the idea here there is back in when the oopsie happened, the question came, of course, from above, and it was, what went out the door? And the answer was? I don't know, right? Well, show me exactly what went out the door. I can't do that. How am I supposed to do that, right? We have about, it's a little over 2 weeks right now, of data retention and the 6 major data centers that we have. And that allows us to go back and see exactly what happened. What went out the network, what came in, every bit that flew over the wire, essentially. So it's a fantastic tool at our disposal. Anyone here, so you guys, I don't know if you can snitch on yourself, do you guys have PCAP?
I'm not sure yet. Again, I was just hired about a week ago. So
Okay,
yeah.
safe answer, it's a safe answer.
Yeah.
He's really like, oh dude, shut up. Many companies, they don't even have it at all. The companies that do have it, they often have like literally minutes of packet capture, and we have weeks of it. Our goal is to have 30-day retention in all of our data centers.
We just got CISO last year, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
How much storage do we have for those 2 weeks?
The last number I had was 6 rotating petabytes, but I don't remember how much it was now. Is it not the same?
Yeah,
Yeah, six petabytes rotating.
I think it's 8 total was our, we have 2 petabytes for just logs.
Just logged. A lot of data. Again, I get that whole, what was that again? The biggest company you've never heard of? Yeah, awesome. We have 6 data centers, I mean, come on. Okay, now, when we came into the picture, we looked at the pre-existing firewall infrastructure, and we're like, this is older technology. We literally want to go with a newer technology of firewall, which we're referring to here as an application firewall. Is anyone familiar with an application firewall? What's it do?
Application security firewalls focus on understanding the signatures of the top apps and protect against that.
Yes. For those of you that couldn't hear it, he basically says they recognize signature of the traffic that's flowing through it. This firewall allows you to identify and, for that matter, block or act upon otherwise based on the specific protocol that's flowing through it, rather than just saying, like, I don't want these particular IPs. You can specifically denote application services. For example, you say, I don't want any Slack traffic coming into my network, so you just stop Slack and things of that nature. So we utilize this to our advantage. We love these guys, and they're there to protect us. Another thing we have is DNS protection. Anyone here familiar with, I just gave that away. Hold on. There we go. Anyone here familiar with the most common attack to large corporations?
Denial of service.
Yeah. Well, you cheaters, because I put it. Yeah. I mistimed that one a tad, didn't I?
I thought everybody knew.
All right. Yeah. Distributed denial of service is just like, some companies it's a daily endeavor you have to deal with. For us, it's fantastic. We pay a third-party company to run the DNS for us. And they have these massive pipes of fiber out there. I just imagine it's just like this huge tree trunk of fiber. I doubt it, but come on. It sounds pretty. And they just contact our network operations center and they say, hey, you're receiving a pretty massive DDoS right now. Don't worry, we've got it. And we go, oh, okay. Cool. Let us know when you're done with all that, and our site goes maybe slightly slower for a while. We're going to go. So it's really not been an impact for us. We also have email blocking. You'll notice these are more generic terms, if you will. So for email blocking, basically we have Cisco iron ports sitting in front of our Exchange gateways. So Cisco iron port allows you to stop particular file types from coming in or potentially going out of the network. We can also filter based on things like user agents. Actually, hold up on that. Yeah. Email addresses, SMTP servers, things of that nature, so that when our SOC identifies problems, for example, a wave or a campaign of email phishing coming in, and they say, oh, look, it's egressing from these two education, university SMTP servers, probably because they have open relays like they all do. You guys have open relays? Because like, I don't know.
And we hear from my networking class, that was a question on our midterm exam.
Was it?
Oh, we have one person, yeah, we have one person over there.
Nice.
Open relays, yeah.
Yeah. Do we have them? We tested, and I believe
Cut that part. No, they don't. Cut that part. All right. Awesome.
yeah, but we should.
Okay, we also have network event parsing, and this is Bro. What Bro allows us to do, we're going to talk about log aggregation and looking through log files. Okay, if your log files are neatly delineated for you, for example, in our case, we get bro underscore SMTP. Guess what's in those log files? SMTP traffic. Jinx, you know where to go. Alright, so obviously bro underscore HTTP, bro underscore FTP, like it just separates it all and categorizes it for us. And it even uses a cute little connection ID that ties them all together so that we can do kind of a transaction-based thing and see exactly what occurred first. Oh, that's awesome. And then we have behavior analysis. This is basically our automated automated malware analysis machines. Two examples being FireEye and Palo Alto Wildfire, which is actually built into the application firewalls. So what these do is whenever users download files via the web or whenever an attachment comes in via email, those are actually sitting inline, what happens is it gets a brand new VM is spun up, the sample is run in that VM, and then heuristically it determines, well, signature-based and heuristically, it determines if it looks fishy or just looks odd, if you will. Examples being, I guess, creation of random run keys, execution of files outside of the temp folder, secondary drop binaries. I mean, there's just a huge list. The idea being is this generates alerts for us, and of course, everything in there needs to be logged. So these are some of the major players in our network layer. And if you look over here on the host, we have this APT detection. We detect all APT immediately. Yeah, that's fun. APT stands for Advanced Persistent Threat, and it's usually the nation-state sponsored attackers who are targeting you specific, that's bad stuff. Yes?
That was the title of our first inaugural Firewallside Chat, so.
Was it?
Yeah.
APT?
APTs, yeah, we talk about APTs.
Oh, sweet.
So.
Cool, all right, okay.
So it's good to see that's being reflected, here. Yeah.
It can also be activist groups like Anonymous or LulzSec or folks like that.
Focused targeted hacking, if you will.
Yeah.
So what these really are, these are different signature scanning mechanisms that we have. Anyone here familiar with the open IOC architecture? Indicator of compromise, IOC being indicator of compromise? So essentially an IOC, you can put it into a file, but you harness various indicators. They can be network-based indicators or host-based indicators. Network being domains, IPs, email addresses, host-based being file names, file size, file creation dates, hashes, and go on forever. There's a bunch of these that are all lumped together in this one specific file format type. There's a couple of them out there actually. Cybox is another example. But anyways, what these tools allow us to do is to take those little signature files and scan throughout our enterprise, to sweep the enterprise essentially, to see if those are resident in our environment. And if they are, well, it seems like maybe the protections up here may or may not have done their job, or again, the device may have just circumvented our stack completely. Alright, and then we also have the ability for forensics and antivirus. Antivirus is boring, it's just standard antivirus. Who cares what we use? We use an antivirus client like any company does. What does antivirus catch these days? You guys know? Like what percentage of actual malicious software AVs are catching these days?
I think Virus Total, the last roundup that they did showed that effective non-false positive detection rates was below 30%.
That's pretty high. That's
It was 33% for a bit there.
be surprised if it's even 25%. So you of course can't rely on these, but you have them as just an initial wall to stop the obvious silliness, low-hanging fruit, if you will. Forensics, we use a couple different forensic utilities. One that, in fact, Chris's team is in charge of and that I'm very proud of using is Google Rapid Response. So Google Rapid Response allows us, even if a laptop is off the network, to basically hit the disk drive using the sleuthkit drivers and to review whatever is on the disk. All kinds of fun stuff. Look it up if you're into forensics. It's a fantastic tool. And then we also have intense monitoring. I'm just going to skip over that a little bit for right now. All of these tools, along with every other system in our entire enterprise, for example, our proxy servers, our exchange servers, I mean, you name it. If the word server's after it, if it's a host, my laptop, desktop, some printer, actually all mini printers too, everything logs activity. And we try to set logging to the highest levels based on critical natures of wanting to understand exactly what's happening in our environment. So, all those logs go into what we have a tool called Splunk. Now, I've actually done like 4 different Splunk talks. I just recently did one. In fact, I stole some of the stuff here is from my last Splunk talk. I just threw in some of the slides. And just to give you an idea, Splunk is a commercial program. There are other utilities out there, and at the end I'll mention, well, in fact, Chris already mentioned the Elk Stack, Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana together. I'm just using Splunk as our example because that's what we use, okay? So I'm not here like selling Splunk to you guys, but it's pretty freaking awesome. No, their goal, I want to log everything. Everything. I often get asked, especially when doing Splunk talks, and then I go sit down, people come up, they're like, what do you guys log? I'm like, that's the wrong question. The question is, what are we not logging and why? Fix it. Log it. Right? We want everything logged, okay? So, much ado about logs. For logging, you need some basic things. You need a log collector. Windows just collects standard Windows event logs. Anyone here familiar with event logs? Yeah? Ever go into the event log viewer and just review some of your event logs on your system? Right? Did you guys do that in class?
No, actually. We're mainly Linux based.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm. But we go into our var log folder quite often.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're playing with syslog, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Systemd syslog for the win. The collector we use, and I'm going to be talking about today, is called Windows Logging Service. It is what's the term? I don't know the term. It's available if you can get it if you have certain contracts through the government. Apparently this guy says you might be able. Anyways, we use one that you may or may not be able to get your hands on. Take a look at it though. It's made by a guy named Jason McCord. Alternatives to WLS that I'll be talking about. You can do the exact same stuff while using other utilities like Snare. Snare's a big one, or not Sysmon. Yeah, Sysmon. Yeah, Sysmon is probably the most common one right now. And you also need a log forwarder. We use Splunk, and they happen to have a tool called the Universal Forwarder. It's pretty simple. It's installed on all laptops, desktops, and servers in our entire enterprise. And it takes all the log files from that particular device, and it sends them over into our Splunk instance, thus logging all the things. Okay, we're going to talk about hunting through your logs. The idea here is you have all these disparate systems, and you want them all to send logs into one environment. Okay, well, what are you going to do with that one environment? What's the purpose of doing that? Let me give you an example. In fact, I have a slide just for that, so I'll hold off an example. But let me talk about one primary thing, and that's hunting. Using your log files to try to find that needle in the proverbial needle in the haystack that otherwise your systems are not going to pick up on. Okay, we spend a lot of money. To me, it's a lot of money on security appliances and devices. All right, and the royal we. Okay, and those devices are not going to find everything, but you'd be amazed at what a single analyst sitting in front of a log aggregation utility, such as Splunk, can find by just getting ideas and testing out those theories and just searching. And we refer to that as hunting. So the idea is you come up with this idea, and the idea is to come up with an idea. That was a little vague. But the idea is to come up with a question, okay? And I'll show you some examples on how we do this, right? So the question, is this happening in my environment? Well, what gets you to make that initial question, right? What brings that to mind? Well, we read articles constantly, Twitter feeds, open source intelligent feeds. Data Exchange came up at some point. Someone asked about Data Exchange.
Many of these.
Yeah, so we do have exchange groups, like Chris said. So when we receive these things, one of the best ways to describe it is the following. If you read an article And whether it's new to you or whether it's new in general to the industry, you see some type of attack being leveraged. Ask yourself, is it possible to identify that type of activity using the logs that I have? And if it's not, you know what your next step to do is? Make it so. Get the logs that will allow you to identify that particular type of activity, and then just look for it. If you find it, oops, right? If you don't, all right, cool. You create a safe search out of that so that it just continually monitors and alerts you if it does occur. So, quick overview of Splunk, and I do mean quick. Where are you over there? All right. There you go. This is the Splunk basic search screen here. I can't do any active queries because none of this data is sanitized, so you would see all of our little bells and whistles. We're not going to do all that. But it's ridiculously easy. For example, I have a script that puts today's date for my earliest and latest, so I can put a time frame around my search, and then I can type something like index equals. And think of indices like just buckets of data, right? We have an index for Windows events, we have an index for Exchange data, and we have quite a few, and so on and so forth. The idea behind this is if you don't have a tool like this, where I can simply say, like, look through all my Exchange servers, right? I can do index equals, and I don't want to give out all our trade secrets here, but I can type it in specifically, just target just Exchange servers. Okay, the alternative to that is, there's someone who works on our messaging team, and they did not yet have access to Splunk. And they contacted me, and we were talking about something, I don't even know what we were talking about. And at some point he brought up, well, I need to go remote desktop into these machines and start rsyncing log files. And my immediate thought was, what? We aggregate log files. You just go right there. And he's like, what are you talking about? Long story short, his previous process was to literally rsync all these log files and then grep through them. Are you guys familiar with grepping? Yeah. Right? And I was like, what years? No. I was like, no, dude. So we gave him access to Splunk, and over the phone, he was literally like, what? Yeah, it's like, yeah, you just run your search there. He's like, and this searches all of them. It's like, really? He's like pissed. Or, excuse me, annoyed that he didn't have it earlier. He's like, what, are you kidding me? So yeah, with this type of tool, you just type those things in, you're good to go. I also have a screen I can show you here. These are some of the quote-unquote hunting searches that I put together in the past couple months. Some of these I'm going to be talking about today, but one of them right here, this guy right here, hunting for ransomware indicators. I went to a conference and I saw a guy do a speech, and it's fantastic. His name is Michael Go. He goes by Hacker Hurricane on Twitter. He's the epitome of what we like to refer to as a hunter in Splunk. And one day we were talking because we share searches back and forth, and he says, oh, hey, here's a search I have for you. And he shot me over a search where he had simply just compiled a massive list of all the different file names that you'll find from various cryptos. Cryptors or ransomware, like you were asking about earlier, right? Mm-hmm. So crypto locker, crypto wall, crypto whatever the heck. He had just compiled from all these different resources, and he's like, yeah, just look through your antivirus logs, and if you see any of these quarantined, you know that, sure, the AV caught these quarantined, but since it's named that, you probably have an active crypto, crypto whatever instance. We're like, oh, cool. So we have that running and continually notifying us. All right, enough of that.
Question. How
Yes.
much does Splunk cost around for a company?
So first, before you answer that, there's a free version of Splunk you can get for 30 days, up to 500 megs of log ingestion. You can play with it all you want, which is cool and fun.
No, it's
Now
free.
Huh?
For the 500 days is free for the Splunk level.
Oh, that's right. You just have to keep renewing the license.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's, so they have a new thing out now that's like $75 a month. I don't know what the data rates are, yeah, and you can have it either on-prem or through their cloud instance of things.
I honestly, because everything is such a little delicate flower and snowflake, blah, 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 I'm trying to avoid the question. I couldn't tell you the exact amount, but what I can tell you is that with Splunk, you pay based on the amount of data you ingest. You do not pay based specifically on how you use the data, for example. So right now we have a 2.35 terabytes a day license. So that much data can flow into Splunk on a daily basis based on our license.
But a 4 terabyte license, we're ingesting 2.3.
That's not what I was told.
Our
Want to
license.
fight about this right now? Is that what's going on?
Throw down.
I don't think you're right. Oh, whatever. Okay, so I have a lot of information. We have a very large license.
Yeah.
We agree?
Yes.
All right, no. All right. And I've already had this discussion here. Basically, if you don't have this, what's the alternative? Well, you're copying files, you're rsyncing them, whatever you're doing, you're shadow copying, whatever, and you're grepping through them. And I mean, if you have 5 machines, even then you see the benefit of aggregating, let alone 50, 60,000 machines.
Plus, sometimes you cannot identify an intrusion based on one system. Sometimes it's by putting all the information together, can you see the bigger picture?
Yes.
That will reveal the fact that you're actually being intruded. In fact, I think APT would be an example that would be really useful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you might not, data correlation is of utmost importance, especially for identifying APT, seeing lateral logons from one device to the next. Just seeing a logon on one machine may mean nothing. But if you see execution of a particular bad process on one machine, and then you see that logon, and then you see blah, 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 you're seeing those in a chain reaction because you're seeing as they're traversing through your network, and yeah. So yeah, good point. All right, some examples. We have an overnight SOC analyst. Her name is Olena. She is really, really good. I didn't ask her if I could say her name, by the way, but it's Olena. And she's really, really good at hunting through Splunk logs and finding bad stuff. In fact, she's so good that I often wake up and I have a message from her asking something like, hey, does this seem legitimate? And it's like, dang, more work. No, that does not seem legitimate. So one day she was asking me about this, and we started to have a conversation, and I thought I would bring this in here. When Windows starts up, do you guys know the primary process that starts up? I'll give you a hint, its ID is 4. Well, I should say one of the primary. System. It's labeled as system, it's always process ID 4, PID 4. Okay, system then sequentially launches in a very specific fashion in chain order, right? Particular processes. Now, at one point, the session manager is going to load WinInit. WinInit is then going to launch services.exe. Services.exe is basically the services coordinator or handler. I can't remember the official term Microsoft uses. But underneath that will then execute multiple versions of servicehost.exe. To the point where often in a Windows environment, you will see processes labeled service host opening and closing, opening and closing. You often see that. Now, if services.exe is supposed to always be launching servicehost.exe, what if something else launches something called servicehost.exe? Back in like the early 2000s, it was extremely common, like I don't know how much percentage or whatever, but malware was almost always labeled servicehost.exe because it just hides in plain sight if you have like a task manager open. So let me give you a quick example of that. We're going to pop into an old Windows XP malware analysis machine I have and just run process hacker. And I'm just going to zoom in. Take a look up here at the top left-hand side. We have our system idle. Whoop. Oh, Ryan. 2 over. Oh, where did I sort by? Where's the tree? No. What'd you do? Classic.
Snapshot.
Right? You know what? We're being recorded, so take a look.
Well, that's more to edit it out.
No, that's so sad that I don't know how to get the view back. I've never actually done that. That's pretty funny. I should have right click undo stupid. There's no undo stupid. Aww. Oh, that totally should not have done that. Whatever. You see how dumb that was? It literally went descending and then, okay. Cool story. Anyways, this time I'm not going to click. See up here the system idle process, which runs with PID4, which is process ID, right? The identification number for that process. That launches system, which is always 4. PID4. That launches SMSS.exe, the session manager. Now notice here we see WinLogon. Well, that's because WinInit actually launches WinLogon and then WinInit dies. So we're seeing a fake parent really. But then here's the important part. See services.exe right here? I lied, I'm going to click. Okay. Services.exe, and then see down here all these different service hosts. If I hover over one of them, this one happens to be running 2 different services, the DCOM server process launcher and terminal services. Okay, they're all just responsible for different services. Like here's my DNS client right there for DNS cache. Okay, cool. Now, if I'm malware and I'm trying to hide in plain sight with servicehost.exe, even if you launch a program like this right here, you'll most likely notice that servicehost.exe is running under explorer.exe. which means it was executed from the Explorer environment, right? So to see that in aggregate with a tool, we can do something like this. We can come up with a search. What we're doing in this search is we're just typing this into the Splunk interface, right? We're saying index equals WLS. That translates simply to Windows event logs, okay? And then I want to say I want event ID 4688. Now, event ID 4688 refers to process execution. That, by the way, is not on by default in Windows. So since I have, what, a total of 45 minutes, right? Yeah, I wanted to show you real quick what goes behind some of these things. In my previous slide, I mentioned you have to have a log collector and a log forwarder, right? You also sometimes have to have specific settings, and not everything is just set up to log correctly. So here we have Windows Server 2012, and we're going to go into group policy oh, I just destroyed my forest. No, we're not. We're not doing that. Okay, well normally, when you go into group policy management in here, you can create group policy objects. So what I'm going to do is just do it the local way. Pretend we're in another program. And pretend it looks like this, because this is exactly what it will look like. I can go in here, let me zoom in for you, to like administrative templates, and then, no. Boop. No, it's not on. Windows settings, and then security settings, and then advanced audit policy configuration. Which one do I mean to pick? Is it one of these? Hmm? Oh. No. Well, I completely forgot where these are. What you set a GPO and it just flies out your domain. You never touch it again, so I forgot. So glad we're recording. Hold on. It's under advanced audit. It's right here. Oh, it's under detailed tracking. There you go. Sorry, I was just about there. All right, see this right here? Audit process creation. If I double click this guy right here, by default, see, it's off. So I just create a group policy object, which looks just like this. I turn it on, and I shoot that config out to all the devices in my domain. And now, whenever logging occurs, or whenever a process executes, logging will occur. And when that logging occurs, it'll come by way of event ID equals 4688. That is tracking every process that executes on the machine. So by turning that on, you're going to obviously then get a lot more logging per your devices. Okay? But that's fantastic, because what did I say we want? All the logging. Louder! What do we want?
Logging.
It wasn't loud again. Oh yeah, logging here! Okay. So over here, what we can do is also specify that when we are searching for these processes, we want to filter based on when the file name being executed is servicehost.exe, but when the creator process name is not services. It just drops the suffix here for the creator service. So, if services is not creating it, what the heck is? Okay, now with this particular search that we put into play, we found the item that she had already identified. Since then, we have not found any others, but what we've done is we've turned it into, we've scheduled it as a saved search. So now it runs, I think this one runs every hour, I believe, and it will alert us and let us know, like, hey, this seems funky, go check it out. Cool. All right, another thing to talk about. How many people here deal with phishing emails? Everyone should be raising your hand right now. At some point, you're going to get a phishing email, whether it's corporate email or not, especially if it's corporate email. But a lot of these things come with attachments. For example, Microsoft Word files. Microsoft Word files can be weaponized quite easily. The two primary ways being to just have a macro, which is usually Visual Basic, and then for applications, or VBA specifically. And another way is to literally just embed an exploit, like with your shirt, using Metasploit. You run Metasploit and you just embed it, and it's now referred to as a carrier file with a malicious payload. So the user simply double clicks on the Microsoft Word document, and then funny stuff happens, right? That funny stuff, like, is that happening in our environment? Now this question was easy to ask because we knew it was constantly happening. So we thought, well, let's just be proactive about it and do some hunting. So we did. Where's the button? There you go. So again, now we're going to be looking at 4688 event codes again, but look what we're checking out now. We want to specifically filter on processes where the creator of that process, meaning the parent process, or the PPID, is windward. Well, technically not the PPID, because that's the ID. But the creator's windward when it's not signed. So something that's not signed is being executed by Microsoft Word. Can you think of how often Microsoft Word should be launching other processes? It's not common. Yeah, it is, and many business applications do weird stuff. We have to create baselines to get rid of the fluff. But in most environments, that should not be often. Especially in a non-corporate environment. That's not right. What's happening there? So the baseline part is down here. See how I'm saying not? New process names in Windows, or the program data file, or something like that. When you originally create these ideas, you're going to get a lot of fluff. Okay? And in order to basically get rid of that, you have to filter out certain things. I can't show you the entire list we have to filter out, because that's all of our known good applications. We don't want to do all that. But the idea is very simple. We table it out, and then we get something like this. In this case, back in November, we see that on the one of the users' app data local temp directory, there is an executable called purchase order blah 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 .exe that was launched by Microsoft Word. Does that seem legit? No, of course it's not legit. Yeah, it ended up being a Trojan downloader. It did infect the system. We did have to get it rebuilt. But we found it because of this search right here. We actually didn't happen to have that particular, I don't know if it was an email campaign, I don't remember now. If it was an email campaign or a single email, but we didn't get an alert from a user or from our email security appliances, but rather our Safe Search found it. And how did the Safe Search come up? Well, one of the guys in our SOC got annoyed that he was continually working these issues and was like, let's just find it in aggregate and just take them out. So another thing, script handlers. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but Windows has two primary script handlers that handle what it's called the Windows scripting engine. There's C script and W script. I'm going to pop into my Windows XP machine here again, zoom in, and I've written I don't even want to say written because I mean it's literally just one line. But here's a Visual Basic script. It is beyond simple. It's a wscript.echo, and it literally just echoes a line. That's it. That's all it does. Okay. Now what I want to show you is if I run cscript and then I drop my file in there, cscript stands for CLI, meaning command line interface script. So you see that it echoes right there in the command line interface. However, if I run the exact same thing except I change the C to a W, we get WScript. And WScript is the window-based, like the GUI-based handler. So we literally see a dialog box, and the script is the exact same code. I didn't change it, right? So those two handlers can at any time on your Windows machine run Visual Basic, VBS typically, or JavaScript. Yeah, Windows can natively run JavaScript. That doesn't sound horrible, does it? And there's also something called PowerShell, which we'll get into momentarily. These scripting engines, when they are called by a program like Microsoft Word, that's an even bigger problem. Because the code that you can embed into Word, once you leap from that and now you're running a more advanced scripting engine, you have all the capabilities inherent to that next engine. So some of the carrier files that we're worried about are Microsoft Word files, Excel files, PowerPoint files, and then of course PDFs, because oh my goodness, PDFs are just full of fun. So what we did is we created this guy. Again, we're looking at any new processes created if that new process on its command line upon instantiation has the terms cscript, wscript, or PowerShell, just within the command line execution parameter. And then if the creator process happens to be one of our target handlers for those common carrier file types. Word, PowerPoint, you get the idea here, right? And in this case, here's an example of one we found. Excel, so Microsoft Excel, okay, launched using cscript, and it launched a file called reg_settings.vds from a desktop of some user's machine in a folder or subdirectory called public lotto permit Excel. Does that seem legit? Of course that's not legit, right? So they immediately found the file. I think we used Google Rapid Response, I believe in this case. We pulled the VBS file down, analyzed the code immediately. We were like, oh, it sucks. that's not good. And yeah, it did run, so oops. Okay, and then let's move into PowerShell here. Anyone here familiar with PowerShell? Awesome. If you're getting into security, you learn about PowerShell. I cannot stand PowerShell. Oh, I hate PowerShell. Oh God. If you're a programmer or have a programming background, right, back up on this, and then you get into PowerShell, you're like, what? Why'd you do that? Yeah, they just took everything and just blew it out of the water, like, nah, we'll do it our way. Oh, gosh. Okay, so anyways, while I don't like the way it's the way the actual syntax and stuff works and the way that's implemented, it's ridiculously powerful, and I mean really, really powerful. Attackers are now starting to leverage the heck out of it. There's actually an entire framework called, wait for it, what are we talking about? PowerSploit. What are we talking about? Where am I? What are we talking about? The PowerSploit is an entire framework of 50-something odd modules, I don't know. And I actually have a search where I was looking for those module names being loaded. Haven't found anything yet. I'm sure I will. So stuff can run in memory, never even touch disk. And one of the best tools, or the best toolkit for any quote-unquote hacker, are the tools that are on the box already. If I don't have to bring in my own stuff, if you leave a compiler on there for me, oh yeah, right? So the best tools are the ones that are already there. And Microsoft decided to include PowerShell. I started in Vista, didn't it? Or was it 7? Vista. 7?
7 was when we became cool.
No one uses Vista, so no one's going to check me on this, right? Someone might Wikipedia and be like, no, stupid.
Initially, you had to install it as a component. It didn't come on by default.
Well, these days, any dang machine you sit down in front of that has any service packs installed, Vista and up, it's going to have PowerShell installed. So PowerShell can do some crazy stuff, but let me give you an example of this. First up, save searches in general, right? We're talking about hunting. After you create your search to perform the hunting, whether you find something or not, what you typically do is you then make that a scheduled save search, right? Save searches account for 25% of the tickets that come into our SOC, technically 25.3 last I checked. All right, that means a fourth of the tickets that our Security Operations Center is working come from save searches that we have created, whether it was based on initial hunting or dealing with an incident and then realizing, oh, this may happen again, let's alert on that, okay? So one of the ones that we had set up is we were alerting for the use of -E and C inside PowerShell. Now, what that does is, there's also technically another one, execution bypass, but I'll save that for another time. So E and C, what that does in PowerShell is it uses what's called base64 to encode a string. Anyone here familiar with base64? Let me give you a quick example for those that are not. We're going to pop into my terminal on my Mac. I'm going to get that inappropriate word off the screen that hopefully you didn't see. And we're going to echo something like Chris's beard is fluffy. And we're going to type that to base64. And what I've just done is I've now created a string. There. I've now created a base64 string. You can typically identify base64 quite easily because of its makeup. And its makeup defines why it was created in the first place. It uses technically erratic 64, or essentially 64 different characters in the known ASCII set to represent any and all data. And the idea behind that was backwards compatibility. Newer systems had newer characters that older systems could not actually allow for transfer back and forth. So what they did is they basically just took A to Z, uppercase and lowercase. That's 52 different letter possibilities. And then the numbers 0 through 10. And then now we're at 62. And then for whatever reason they threw in a forward slash and a plus sign. So if you see something that usually you see it right away. Another thing you'll notice is that right here, see this ends in a what is that? That's what it is, yeah. I don't know where I am anyway. The equal sign here is what they use for padding. You'll sometimes see 1, typically 2. What's it called again? The equal signs at the end of a base64 encoded string. And you can easily decode these bad boys. Like I can echo out, no, do over. I can echo out that, type it to base64-D, and there you go. So it decodes it. So base64 is used for it was an old MIME type that was used quite heavily. In fact, it's still used for email, by the way. Email attachments are encoded in base64. So if you're like, I don't use base64, yeah, you do. Trust me, you do. So why would someone need to base64 encode an entire PowerShell script? Why would someone do that?
Maybe you want to send a email.
Because they want us to send a rebuild, yeah. Because the host
Without being detected.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah. The idea is they're trying to avoid detection, right? So they're encoding the data. Yep, stealth. So, by the way, this idea came from one of our analysts. His name is Keith. Keith Tyler on Twitter. Follow him, he's a great guy. He was sitting there one day and he's reading an article, and in the article it's talking about various or a particular one or various, I don't know, APT groups that are leveraging -E and C and then hiding their scripts. And he thought to himself, huh. And that's where the hunter's mentality comes in. He went and he checked. Didn't find anything, but then he scheduled a search. And eventually, we found this. Well, here's the search first. So again, we're looking through 4688 events. By the way, for any of you familiar with actual PowerShell module logging, which is a newer and version 5, you can log specifically PowerShell events, which go to 4102, 4106, I believe, and a couple others. For right now, we're just using our tried and true 4688, process execution, okay? And in here, the base name should be PowerShell.exe. And the command line, if it includes -enc, technically space -enc, and for that matter, where's my, there you go. See right there, the C? C doesn't have to actually be included. PowerShell could also do -en, it does the same thing. So we changed our alert for that so people didn't skirt by our safe search. So what we do is we're just looking to see like there's anything encoded. And then one day, in November, these little guys pop up. Don't worry about the computers, they are